Hey, everybody, welcome back to another conversation with another stranger. These have been so beautiful. I've enjoyed them so much that I'm actually going into series two of my 50 conversations. It was called 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. And somehow the magnetism of that was so great that people started replying. Um, and we finished those 50 conversations in about a week and a half. I didn't think it was going to happen that fast. So now we're in 50 more conversations with 50 more strangers. It doesn't mean they're stranger than the people that were before. It just means there were additional people. And the only thing I really know about the person that I'm speaking to now is that she liked some of the conversations that we were having. And so I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I reached out to her and I said, because I don't know you and because you like what we're doing, would you like to come on and have a conversation? So I think that's correct. We'll find out as we go. But I want to introduce you and introduce me to Barbara Ann Centeno. And I want to say, Barbara Ann, welcome to 50 Conversations. And how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Tell us, if you would be so kind, because I don't know you. We met for about 18 seconds right in the green room before we came on, and I know nothing about you. So tell me and the people listening, if you would, who you are and what's important to you.
I am just me. I am a soul. I'm a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a cousin. I'm a soul.
I love that. And to this soul that sits before us in those many different roles, what would you say is most important to you?
Myself first. I know it might sound, I think you need to take care of yourself, be in tune with yourself and who you are first. Uh, not necessarily not worry, but take into consideration other people and all, but you got to be true to yourself first.
Yeah. It sounds so simple to do that. It sounds so obvious that that's what we would do. But when you look around in the world that we live in, not very many people do that. And it seems like in a lot of these conversations I'm having, people have said that they were initially um, praised for being themselves. And then as life went on, they were criticized for being themselves or ostracized for being themselves. Has that ever happened to you?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I don't think you could be a human and not. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and I know it sounds selfish, and it is, but it's not,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Why do you even think it sounds selfish? Because I don't think you're saying to be selfish. I think you're saying the most important thing in the world, which is that we need to take care of ourselves. Why does that,
Absolutely.
what about that even seems like you have to say, you have to protect that by saying it sounds selfish. I know it sounds selfish, but it's really important. What do you think people hear when you say that makes you want to say the that rationalizer, if I can be so brave? I don't think it's a rationalizer. I'm not finding the right words, but you know what I'm saying?
I grasp what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just a very strong individual, strong willed, and me and my husband, we've been together 30 years and we disagree on a lot of things, sometimes even politics. Yet we're still married. We still love each other. Obviously, been up and downs, but yeah, I'm just very strong-willed and strong-minded since I was a child, and have very strong opinions. And people, yeah, just strong-willed.
Okay. What makes you happy?
Myself, first of all, waking up and just seeing the sunlight, just light, just being awake in the morning. I see so many people wake up and they need their coffee, they need this, they need that. I was at a get-together, or we were all staying at the, everybody woke up in the morning and everybody's, you know, where's the coffee, where's this? And someone turned around and says to me, well, do you want coffee or tea? And I said, it doesn't matter. Like, well, what do you drink? What do you use to get you going in the morning? He said, I don't need anything.
Oh.
I'm just happy. I don't need anything. I will, you know, I'll have a cup of tea, I'll enjoy it, but I don't need it. I can have a simple cup of water and be just as content.
Where does that strength come from? Where does that contentment come from? Where does that place in you come from that you just wake up happy when you see so many people need something to make them happy or give them happiness? Where do you think that strength comes from within you?
My inner self, just, good question.
Do you have a practice or something where you connect to that inner self? How do you know so strongly that it's there?
I feel it. It's there. You could call it, it's not faith. Faith's a different thing. Just there's so many things to be happy about and content about. You know, first of all, I live in the United States. I've traveled various countries and places, and just you see the world and the way people live and everything. And just I remember the first time I left the country, when I came back, I saw the American flag and I was like, I'm home. Yeah. I'm home, because it's completely different. And it's odd to me when I realize that there's people who are born in a certain city or place, small town, and they never leave. It's just amazing to me. I was born and raised in LA, or LA County, not LA. And well, it is LA, but I remember I was 18 years old and I was bored, and we had Hollywood and we had everything there, and I got bored. And then, well, he wasn't my husband then, but my boyfriend at the time, I remember we were in the car just driving, and he says, what's over there? I said, San Francisco. We were on the 5 freeway. And then he says, oh, and he's like, I've never been there. I said, well, let's go. He goes, what do you mean, let's go? I said, you keep driving. We go. And we did. We went, we had dinner, and then we came home that night. But that's just, I've always wanted to see what's out there and go see what's beyond there, because, you know, people want to come to LA, and I got to the point where it's like, okay, I've seen LA, I've seen Hollywood. Yeah. I need to see what else is out there.
Yeah. I remember your story is so lovely, because I remember as kids, we were all 16 years old, and I was in amongst a group of friends at that point in time that had a bunch of money, and all of us had cars that were 2-seater cars. So we went out to dinner, and so there were 5 cars that had to drive to dinner, because all of us only had 2-seater cars, and we had our dates with us, the women we were going out with, and we finished dinner, and this was in Kansas City, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And things were sort of closing down. It was like 9 o'clock or so in Kansas City, and things were sort of shutting down. And people just said, we're not ready to go home yet. We're not ready to do it. What should we do? And someone had the idea, why don't we fly to Chicago? And we thought,
my kind of friends.
We thought, what do you, that's what it reminded me of. I said, what are you guys, crazy? And they said, no, let's go to Chicago. Yeah. We drove to the airport. We got on like a 12:30 flight to Chicago. We walked we walked and had some drinks in Chicago and walked the town, and came back at 7:30, and we're ready to go to work at 10 o'clock, and, just lived crazy for a little while, which was fun. But fewer and fewer people do that these days, I think. I wonder why.
I think they might not be blessed enough economically to be able to afford it. I know that. I know things are completely different. I remember as a little girl, I think I was in kindergarten or something. And I don't know why I remember that. think they ask you, I think it was my preschool graduation actually, or kindergarten. It was somewhere there, and they asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I always said, I wanted to work at Thrifty and Carl's Jr. because I love Thrifty's ice cream and Carl's Jr. Their fries, not their actual fries. What are they called? I just went blank. And they looked at me and they said, why? I said, because I'll be able to eat all the free ice cream and have all of the fries. And oddly enough, back then, someone, well, you remember Thrifty's. Back then, a person could work at Thrifty's, work their 40 hours and have a decent life, live in a small apartment. They could get another job and still be able to make it. You no longer can do that. And that's very sad.
Yeah, it's harder and harder.
Yeah.
If money weren't important to you, what would you be doing with your life?
Exactly what I'm doing now, because it's not that it's not, but I'm in a good situation.
Yeah. Fabulous. Let's play a little. Let's go to a lightning round, and I have to warn you, I'm not good at lightning rounds because lightning rounds are normally fast questions, fast answers. I suck at that. So the first couple will be pretty easy and pretty fast. As we get more questions, they'll probably go a little bit longer, but that's fine. It's just the context of it. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea. Would you say you're a person that's in the box or a person that's out of the box?
Out of the box.
Tell me about that.
Just always thought and saw everything differently. Just
Did that come with any feelings of separation from the world that you live in? Did it cause any anxiety for you or pain or loneliness or any of that, those types of things? Or did it always just feel that's my place and I love it?
No, there obviously has been pain and difficulties in life. However, I've always had this faith or this inner something within me that just lets me see outside of me, just be appreciative of everything else and say, okay, I'm in this situation, but look at this person or look at that. I could be there. And I was born very, very privileged. And it's something that was really, and I don't mean necessarily economically, but just always a lot of encouragement, and I was number one at everything. I mean, it was just all of these people always praising me, and yeah. But I saw a lot of craziness too,
Yeah.
I didn't have like a perfect life. There was a lot of craziness going on, but it made me appreciate more other things. So.
Mm-hmm. Both of these are really important, but I want to ask you, for you at this point in time, which do you feel is more important? Do you feel it's more important for you to find a platform where you can speak your message and be heard? Or do you feel that it's more important for you to create a platform for other people to speak their messages and for you to be able to listen?
It depends on the situation. However, people need to be heard. People need to be heard, or else they have pain in them, and that's the worst thing there is to me, for anyone to be in pain, either physical, mental, or just pain from what's going around outside of them because of illness, whatever pain there is. I've always thought of, before when I was younger, I'd always say, oh, I want peace in the world. Well, not anymore. Not that I don't want peace, obviously. Peace is a thing. My wish or my dream would be no more pain. Remove the pain from the world, and everything would be great.
So let me play with that idea with you a little bit, because I so love the innocence of what you believe. And I so love how, like, I can feel how much you want that, not only hear your words. And I love that I can feel how much you want a world that is pain free. And not but, because I don't want to deny what you're saying. I want to just understand it better. So much of the way the world moves, so much of the way the world um, and people in the world grow is through painful situations that
Mm-hmm.
lead them to leave behind what it is they're doing
Right.
and try something else because it's just too painful to continue doing things the way they are. I'm like you. I wish that we could just be find happiness and let our happiness guide us to something that would bring us more joy. But so often I see that that doesn't work as well for people as pain. And people almost have to go through that pain in order to evolve and change. And what do you think about that based on the
No,
fact that you want a pain-free world?
and mm, I guess I didn't word. No, I did word it correctly. It's just I don't know how I would. Absolutely, you need pain. Pain has helped me grow. Um, Oddly enough, I have a high tolerance for pain, which is. I have a daughter who was very, very ill. She had these headaches that wouldn't go away. Like for a whole year, she'd have it. It got to the point that we'd go to San Diego Rady's Children's Hospital. She'd go in there, they'd give her a shot, a cocktail of all the, to remove a headache or whatever it was. She would walk in crying. She'd come out and they said, okay, it got to the point that she had her own room. We'd walk in and we knew we'd walk in, we'd go to the right, that's her room. They'd
Wow.
come in, they give her a shot and it wouldn't help. She would walk out and they said, go home, go see your doctor. And she'd look at me and she would still be crying, saying, mommy, but it still hurts. Like, I know. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't do anything. It got to the point that, and I do believe everything happens for a reason. Pain absolutely makes you grow. I think it has made me stronger. A lot of pain from when I was younger is what made me who I am now, why I'm so appreciative of everything around me. I met so many doctors. It got to the point that she was being seen by the top people at UCI who do the medical journals for headaches and all, people who do everything for headaches, for migraines, for this and that. And no one could figure out what was wrong with my child. And we went through so many doctors that I would go into a doctor's office and they would say, I can't help you. I'm not going to attempt to help you. You need to find, but these doctors would fire themselves because they couldn't and wouldn't. They didn't know how to help. And I remember saying that to somebody and they said, that's horrible. And I looked at them, I said, that's great. They don't think they're God or they don't think they're the supreme being that they could figure it out, because that helped me move on and find other doctors and find another solution. And it got to the point that it was so bad. This is a girl who was a cheerleader, who was straight, great grades, always upbeat, jumping up and down, happy child. And suddenly she was immobile because of the pain. And it got to the point that instead of praying for her to get better, I would pray, God, if it's your will to take her, but take her now, please.
Wow.
Take
Is
her.
that much pain?
Oh, it was horrendous. She ended up, she was visiting grandparents, and they live I'm in San Diego, they're in LA County. And so she was visiting them for Martin Luther King. And my son was there also. And she became very ill. My son called me and says, Mom, she needs to go to the hospital now.
Wow.
And I said, okay, go to the garage. There's always all these cars there. I'm like, go get a car, any car, and leave. He goes, oh, well, Grandma and Grandpa aren't home. I said, I don't care. Get the keys and take her to the hospital. And he said, there is no car here. I'm like, that's impossible. There's always cars in this house. I said, okay, hold on. Call my sister, and Well, long story short, my sister ended up taking her. I said, take her to the hospital. I'm on my way. But it takes me 2 hours to
Right.
get there. So I got there, and it was the most amazing thing. She went into the hospital. She actually didn't even get into the hospital until I arrived, literally, because,
Wow.
you wait in the hospital. And they didn't know her there. They know her in San Diego, but they don't know her there. She went in, they gave her a shot. And she turned around and smiled. She said, Mommy, my headache's gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where's that nurse? Come back here. Come back
Wow.
here.
Wow.
So they gave it to us. That was a blessing. A lot of people are like, how can you call all of these blessings? I said, it is, because you don't understand that there was a time and people thought that was, and that's, it's like, how can you be so evil, or who thinks or wishes or prays for their child to leave? I said, because when you see someone in so much pain,
Yeah.
you don't want them in pain.
Yeah.
Because you love them so much, you don't want them in pain. And I don't think until someone experiences that, they realize how it is. And I had a lot of people reaching out to me, but I'm a person who tends to be on my own and just handle things on my own. And there was so many doctors, so many appointments, so many follow-ups, and people I had to deal with just with insurances, that people would call and say, Barbs, if you need anyone to talk to, this and that. And I never did. And then people, I know they, from other sources, it's like, it's weird. Like, who do you talk to for help or for, I said, I don't have time to get on the phone and talk to someone and explain to them. And I know they come from a good place in their heart and they just want to make sure I'm okay. It doesn't matter if I'm okay at this point. I need to make sure my daughter is okay. And so, and yeah, pain. So I don't know how I would word that. Pain is absolutely necessary, because I had never had a headache in my whole life. I've never had, like I said, I have high tolerance for pain. And luckily after that, I ended up getting a headache that was really bad, which was good, because that's how I ended up understanding what the headache was like.
Wow.
But yeah.
So fast forward to today, is she still getting headaches, or is she, how is everything now?
She's doing very, very well. She'll be leaving. Well, she was supposed to be at the university right now, but with COVID,
Right.
So she visited the university. She has her dorm room, her roommate, and everything. And she's supposed to be going, and we'll see what happens, because we don't know. We're in limbo right now.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, she's ready to go.
Totally. Well, thank you for sharing that. I share so much with you in common. Um, my wife passed away of the most painful cancerous death that you could ever imagine, where she had the last 2.5 years of her life were in blood curdling, screaming pain for 45 minutes, every 45 minutes. And then there would be 45 minutes off, and then it would come back for 45 minutes again for 2 years, off and on. And I couldn't think, like, I don't think it's cruel or mean or upsetting at all that you would pray at some point that your daughter just be taken so that she doesn't have to deal with that. Because I always thought of myself as the great white knight. When I'm around, nothing bad happens to anybody. But I was 2 inches from my wife during the time that she was screaming all day, all night, and I couldn't take 1 second of her pain away from her. And so I know the anguish that goes through when that pain is going on. Can I share another story with you? And I'd love to get your impressions, because
Absolutely.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to meet with some of the wealthiest people, some of the most inspirational people, and not just meet them, but to sit in their homes and meet their parents and play with their kids, to sit around the dinner table and just have long conversations where they would counsel me and ask counsel from me on occasion. And I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with some of the poorest of the poor. And they've been kind enough to do the same thing. They would give me counsel and sometimes ask my counsel. But the person that's taught me the most has been my daughter. My daughter and I are so close to one another. It just so happens she's developmentally delayed. And I never thought that I would ever be able to deal with a developmentally delayed kid. And my wife passed away. So I raised her on my own for probably about 20 years. My daughter can't speak like you and I are speaking now. She's not able to form the words or get the words out. And so for a long time, I was the only one that understood her. And she counted on me to understand her because I was the only one that could do it. And I don't know how I did, but most of the time I would get it. But Barbara, there were times where she would say stuff I had no idea what she was talking about. And we're not talking about, you know, Socrates and Descartes and, philosophical conversations. We're talking about just basic human needs. Like, are you hungry? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to take a walk? What would you like to do? And when she would speak to me and I didn't understand it, she would raise her voice and say it louder. But it normally wasn't the volume for why I didn't get it. It was the clarity of her speech. So when she would speak and she said it louder, it didn't help. Although occasionally, every once in a blue moon, the way she said it when she said it louder, screaming it, was different, and the intonation was different, and I heard it. But most times not. So when she would yell and speak and I didn't get it, she would then go into a tantrum. And the tantrum didn't necessarily happen right at that same time. It could be while we were walking in downtown. It could be in a store. It could be in a restaurant. It could be at a friend's house. It could be it went around our dining room table. It could be wherever it turned out. And they were loud and hard. And when that didn't work, she would come running to me and try and rip my shirt or bite me. Or she would attack me. And this went on for about, I'm going to say about 15 years. And I thought that I was this great white knight that I could solve everybody's problems. And I was just, around me, nothing bad happened to people, but I couldn't figure out one doggone thing to do. And finally, after this was happening like three, four, sometimes 10 times a day, thank God not every day, but a lot of days, I looked at her and I said, Elise, I just can't do it anymore. I can't understand your words. And it kills me not to understand your words. I want to understand you. And I love you so much. I want so more than anything to understand you. Can you try and talk to me without using your words? And she looked at me and had a big smile on her face. And she said, I am, Daddy, in perfect English. And I said, what the heck do you mean you are, Daddy? Like, how are you doing that? Like, how come this is the first time I'm finding this out? How are you doing that? And she took her finger and she put it to the side of her head. And I understood from that she was telepathically putting thoughts into my mind. Because she couldn't speak, her ability to transmute thoughts to me was more advanced and more developed. And she thought, why should I speak when I can do it this way? But he's just not getting me. And we started laughing hysterically, just contagiously, so that we went for probably 15 minutes just laughing and laughing and laughing. But it felt like 10 years. Barbara, from that point on, she never raised her voice, she never tantrumed, and she never attacked again. And I thought, this is amazing. And I wondered, could I take this same philosophy of the fact that people just want to be heard, and when they aren't heard, they scream, and when they scream and they don't get heard, they create chaos and havoc, and they do something to destroy something. Could I bring that into the marketplace? Could I take that into boardrooms and of big businesses? Could I bring that into entrepreneurial ventures? Could I bring that into schools? Could I take it into hospitals? Could I take it into prisons? Could I take it to homeless shelters? Could I take it anywhere where people gathered? And I started to do just that. And one of the things I found is that every single person that I met, my daughter wasn't different from everybody else. She was just the same as everybody else. Everybody did exactly the same things. They spoke, and when they didn't get heard, they screamed. When they yelled and they didn't get heard, they created chaos. They created situations that were hard for everybody to deal with. And when those didn't work, they would destroy. They would destroy a building, shoot people in a square. They would destroy an initiative. They'd destroy a marriage. They'd destroy a friendship. They'd destroy a reputation. And then I said to myself, sorry, the story's coming to an end now. Thank God, because it's too long. I didn't realize it was going to go this long. Then I realized that our bodies do the same thing, that our environment does the same thing, that our businesses do the same thing. What do you agree with any of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, people need to be heard, and if they don't, their anger will manifest into something else. I think everyone needs to get it out. I think some people do it differently. They need to go speak to every single person they meet.
Yeah.
And others could talk to one person and be fine. I tend to be that one. I don't have to tell, like, one person's heard me, I'm good to go, I gotta go, I don't have time to waste. I gotta
Right.
keep going.
Right.
So but yeah, it's the anger. I think it's if they don't get heard, then they start just brewing within them, and it has to come out. It's like a tea kettle, eventually it's
Yep.
going to come out one way or the other, either positive or negative. And
So stay with me. And this is going to get a little bit uncomfortable, maybe, and we don't have to go here. We can just say, I'm not going to do it. What do you think your daughter's headaches were trying to say to her and to your family?
well, I found out it's hereditary, actually, and hormonal, because they did say that by the time she was, they expected it by the time she was between 21 and 23, it would go away and never come back.
Wow.
But they could never pinpoint exactly what it was. And so it was, I can't say it was eating habits, because I was brought up with a father who, I have a lot of siblings, and he made sure we all ate healthy. Like, he grows all of his own fruits and everything, and
Wow.
every day we have fresh fruit and juices. And so I would wake up every day 4:30, well, I actually still do, 4:35 in the morning. I haven't been, with COVID, you think I would be doing it, but I'm not. I stopped for some reason. I did the reverse. I would buy all these carrots and, all of these vegetables, and I juice them every morning and give it to them. And with her, I started giving her the juice, the vegetables in the morning, the fruit in the morning, the fruit juice, and the vegetables in the evening, and they'd eat, and then I'd still put supplements. And
Okay. It would be interesting just to try and understand if the world operates in speak, yell, tantrum, attack. What, even if it was hereditary and even if it went away at a certain period of time because it was done, what do you think, and we don't have to answer it here, what do you think might have been happening that her body might have been trying to say to you guys or say to her during that period of time that it couldn't get, that it had to go so bad to be in that much pain to make her notice it?
maybe she needed to be more in tune with herself and her body.
Okay. Huge. I mean, those are huge things.
Yeah.
All right. I told you I sucked at that lightning round, right? So here, I want to just prove myself right there. Do you feel like you fit into the world, or have you always felt a little different?
I felt a little differently, but I feel like I fit in being uniquely me. I fit in a strange little way, but I do fit into the whole puzzle.
Yeah.
Or the whole mosaic, I should say.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for using my imagery. I love that. Do you feel like you've operated more from your head in your life or more from your heart?
It depends. It used to be more from the head, but I guess my heart's always been in it. My father has made sure that sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this, this, and that. And he would point out, no, do this, this, and that. And I'd say, no, I could do this. And he would say, you don't need it. For example, many years ago, I was already married, and we were first married, had our first kid. Financially, we weren't rich, and I recall it was a rainy day, and I was at my father's house, and he walks in soaking wet, and I looked at him and I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "Oh, I walked home." I said, "Where's your car?" He says, "I gave it away." He said there was, on the bus stop, there was a family with 5 children and they were getting wet. He said, "So I stopped by and I gave them the car." And I looked at him and I said, and they couldn't, actually I didn't think of it. I think it was a sibling who said they couldn't give you a ride home, like you give them the car.
Right,
And,
right.
and then he says, no, they needed to get home. And that could have easily been us. I have 5 siblings myself.
Wow.
And then I looked at him and I said, "But Dad, you could have given me, like you could have given them a ride and given me the car. I love that car."
Right.
And then he says, "No, you don't need it." And I said, "Yes, I do." He says, "No, you want it. You don't need it."
Wow.
And at that time, I was really young and I guess I could have, I didn't understand and comprehend. But as years went on, we own several properties and I maintain and manage and all of that. Things would occur and I would say, "Oh, I'm keeping the deposit, this and that. I'm upset because this and that." And he said, "Nope, do this and that." And then he'd look at me and said, "Look at how old you are. Look at all of this that you own. You own it. It belongs to you. They can't afford this.
Yeah.
They can't do this. So you're going to do the right." I'm like, "It is the right thing. Legally, this, and that." And he says, "No, you're not." And well, he wouldn't say "you're not." He would guide me towards that way.
Right.
And then I'd look at it and hesitantly would say, "Well, no, it's about the money. I need to make money. I need to do this, and that to keep making more money." And he would say, "No, you don't. You don't need it." I was like, "Oh, I need more money." He's like, "No, you don't." So
somewhere along the line, you were lessened in
a lot.
the difference between need and want.
Exactly. Because if it was for me, I think originally myself, it would have been more, no, it's all about the money. I need more money. I own it. I do this. I do that. And I'm the first generation from both my mother and my father's side born here in the United States. And so going back and seeing where my father was born and seeing, how they lived in the, in other countries and everything, you look and you realize we are rich. The poorest, and not now, I think now there's so much homelessness and everything, but at one point you can actually say that the poorest person in the United States is still richer than the poorer person anywhere in any other country.
Yeah.
So
not necessarily happier, but richer, right?
Right.
I remember being in Bali and seeing people that made maybe $1 a week, maybe $1 a month, maybe $1 a day. I don't remember, but they were the happiest people that I've ever met in my life. And they just were happy to go out and work the fields and happy to go out. And they just had a smile on their face and they made nothing. So it was the first time, I think, well, not the first time, but it was one of those moments where I looked at what money means towards happiness and what happiness means towards money. And it made me realize that they're not interlocked.
Yes.
That they can walk hand in hand, but they don't have to. Would you say you're a leader or a follower?
Both. I could be a leader when it comes to all the properties and everything that I take care of because I have to, because I own them. But I've learned there's a lot of things like per se, like a wedding. We did our wedding in like 2 weeks. I don't like this whole planning thing and this and that. I don't have time. I don't have the patience for it. I just don't. There's certain things where I've done, like say being leaders of like Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops, where now it's like, oh no, somebody else go do it. I'm done doing all of that stuff, because it turns out that usually the same people volunteering and doing that same stuff. So a lot of the times now, I think I've learned how to relax, and I'm at the point in my life where it's like, everyone do whatever you need to do. How much is it? I'll write you a check, and my life's happier and easier. I just try to be easier.
So what does leadership mean to you? Because it seems like it's like, I love your answers because they're not what people normally give. I love so what does it mean to you to be a leader?
A leader is someone who has a heart, and they can recognize that if you have employees, you have to recognize people's weaknesses and what they're good at and praise them for what they're good at. And everyone has something good to bring to the table. I like asking people for opinions, and that doesn't mean I'm gonna ask for your opinion. I can have 5 different opinions. It's not, I'm gonna listen to them. That's not mean because I asked for your opinion, that's what I'm gonna do.
Right.
But I'm gonna take it into consideration in my form, what I'm gonna do. I may do it, but the likelihood is not. But
Yeah.
that's just, a leader, someone who is, who doesn't just, they need to take everything into consideration, including feelings, because you don't want to do something where then that person is so sad they go and then commit suicide because they think they're a failure, because they're not.
Yeah. So allow me to paint a little scenario for you, and I want to get your feedback on it if I can. Okay. When I look in the world in general, I don't see many leaders. It doesn't matter what area I look in. I see people who are leading, but I don't see many leaders. And for me, what I see is, I see people who lead within a silo, and those silos go a certain direction, but I don't see people within those silos often that have the courage to stand up to the silo belief system and say, hold it, this is really good about what we're doing, but this really is not. And we can't support this team going in this direction because of these things that are just not good about what's happening. The lowest hang, I think your dad was probably a great leader. I don't know if he was actually in a leadership capacity, but the fact that he would stop you, which is a strong-willed woman, in her tracks and say, no, that's not the way to do it, is the type of person that I'm looking to when I see a leader. Okay. And I don't know if your dad was that or not, but the feeling that I get from you as you explain sort of how he dealt, how he worked, how he led you in his life would indicate that to me. The lowest hanging fruit we can look at, which is too obvious, is the political scenario in the country today, where you have a pro-Trump camp and you have an anti-Trump camp, and I'm not for or against either side. What I notice in a pro-Trump camp is that people may secretly murmur things that they don't like about what he's doing, but when they don't have the leadership quality, I guess, to stand up and say, this is just wrong. And I notice in the anti-Trump camp that they don't have the leadership quality to be able to say, hold it, this guy's, give the dog a bone every once in a while. The guy's done some really good things. But every time he walks around a corner, they have a wooden bat ready to swing at his head. And it's like, you can't, nobody survives that. And I'm not a big Trump supporter, but it doesn't matter. I still believe he's done some good things. And I believe that nobody in that anti-Trump camp gives him any validity for things that he's done well. And so we have 2 camps of leaders that are really very strong followers, because they're scared to go against the momentum of their own party or their own silo or their own belief system. It happens in medicine, it happens in education, it happens in relationships, it happens in but politics is such an easy place to see it. What do you think about the scenario I just painted?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Everyone, and not everyone, but the media and everyone I think he's one of the strongest presidents we've ever had as far as internal being of a human being, because that is hard, difficult stuff for, especially nowadays. It's not only on the news, it's the media, it's all over the world. This is the first president, if I'm not mistaken, I guess Obama also, but where everything was not only on the TV and the newspaper, it's everywhere. And that's, I mean, mentally for a president or anyone in a high position at this point, it's got to be very, very hard and difficult to just the daily everyone badgering and just saying bad things. Everything's so negative, and it's got to be so hard. I cannot even imagine being a president or anything like that, because I'm just trying to give away all that stuff to someone else to do.
Right. Right.
But yeah, on their self-esteem and everything. I know he's a strong-willed guy. That's the way he appears on TV, but nobody knows, I mean, or whoever does know, behind the scenes, I don't know. That's a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah. When I look at him, not with no judgment in mind, I see a wounded little boy. And I see somebody who stands up and with bravado to protect himself from this battery that he's about to take. That if the country could have just said to him, like, take coronavirus, for instance, because the big thing is, well, I stopped people from coming on January 30th. That was a great thing that he did. I mean, he probably saved a lot of lives by making sure that people didn't enter January 30th against the tide of a lot of people that said that's phobic and you're. But then what happened from January 30th to April 1st, right? There wasn't that much that happened. But if we would say, yeah, you did great there, that was great, but then nothing happened from these two times. What can we do now to make all of it happen? And so how do you think we get leadership back?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, people, I don't even know. At this point, it's hard. You're always going to have opposition from one or the other. And at this point, I'm assuming you mean leadership as far as a president for the country.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, we have a leader right now, he's our president. However, to keep going after him, what's going to happen, I don't know. And I think even people who are willing to become presidents or whatever might look at it and it's like, wow, he's being attacked. Just an average person, you put him in one day in a president, a president besides Trump or Obama, just a president before both of them, that's got to be stressful. But now I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Right. That's certainly. Do you think people are more similar than they're different, or more different than they are similar?
More similar than they're different.
So why do you think people, the large majority of people I ask that question to, say the same thing? Why do you think it's so easy for us to find the differences in people and pick on those differences?
Because people aren't happy with themselves, or they find fault with something that's similar or reminds them of themselves.
That's interesting. Say more about that, because I like what you're saying, because in my book, The Mosaic, that character is the gardener.
Oh, wow. I haven't even read your book.
Yeah. I would love for you to read it. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because the gardener has this most beautiful garden, and Mo comes and sees it, and he's seen a lot of beautiful gardens, but this garden's exquisite. And he sits, and it's so overwhelming for him. He's so enraptured by it that he actually sits with his eyes closed, because he can't take in the smells and the sounds and the feeling and the visual. He has to isolate down to a few things that he can get. So he concentrates on the smell, and within moments, about 2 millimeters away from him, he feels his presence, and he opens his eyes, and there's a man standing in front of him. And Mo says to the man, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And the gardener says, I know who I am. I'm the gardener. The question is, who are you? What are you doing here? And Mo says, well, last night I smelt your garden from the village nearby. And I woke up this morning hoping that I would be able, that the aroma would still be here and that it would bring me to this place. This is the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. What do you do to make this garden so beautiful? And the gardener says, well, I don't know. I mean, everybody knows if you put certain colors of flowers together, they make each other more beautiful. And the gardener said, I understand. And Mo said, I understand that, but everybody does that. What makes your garden more beautiful? And the gardener thinks for another minute or two, and he says, well, if you put tall flowers behind small, short flowers, there's gives it depth. And he said, I get that, but that's not it. And so the gardener thinks for a minute, and he says, Mo, have you ever gardened? And he said, well, I'm not really a big gardener, but sometimes I'm in my journey, I'm walking around and I want to help people do something for them. And they'll have me we'll go into the garden and we'll weed together. And the gardener says, perfect. He said, what do you do when you come to that clump of weeds, when you pull it out with your hand and it breaks at the top? You haven't gotten the roots out, but it just breaks at the top and you can't see it anymore, but it's, you haven't gotten it out. And Mo says, well, I'm just there for the day. I don't do much to dig it out. And so the gardener says, maybe that's why you think this garden's so beautiful, because I'm a gardener. That's all I have to do. I dig out those roots, because if you don't dig out those roots of your own weeds, every time you water your garden, your weeds will grow, and your garden will be suffocated by the roots of the flowers will be suffocated by the roots of the weeds. And so maybe you like my garden because of what you don't see rather than what you do see. You don't see any weeds here. And the whole concept is that until we clean our garden of the things that bother us, the things that are not good for us, we'll always see that in other people's gardens. And so, what do you think of that story?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. And yeah, and I think it's true.
Yeah.
And we all have faults. Or maybe you don't. I do. And
I
I've
don't
learned.
think. There is no one in the world that knows me, myself included, that would say I don't have a ton of faults. So just let's get that on paper.
But I think when something bothers you, you have to look internally into yourself and say, why is that bothering me? Ask yourself.
Yeah.
And
So circle back now beautifully. I love you because of the way you think, and it sets up so easily the question. So when we sit in our silos and yell at each other, and if we realize that if something bothers you, it's because there's something in ourselves, what would happen if someone came along and just had the power to share that with us? And we stopped yelling at others and started looking in the mirror at ourselves. Do you think there's any chance the world would change?
absolutely, but I also don't want to be naive and I don't think, or maybe it is possible, that you'll completely be free of everything. You know what I mean? Like there's always going to be something bothering you, something wrong as you get older. Your point of views change, things happen, change life. So then you see things a different way, you go a different direction. So although people might see it as, oh, well, this person said this and this is the way they do it. Well, yeah, maybe yesterday, but today I changed my mind and I'm not doing it like that anymore because I saw a movie or I saw, I read the book or I met this person and I realized this thing. And, there is a few things that I'm at fault here. And I always tell my husband, I'm like, point them out to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm horrible. Don't ever hint at me. Don't ever say, oh, well, this and that. To me, I'm factual. Write it down. Give it to me in a piece of paper or tell me, stop everything and do it right then and there because I'm not going to remember in 10 minutes what the heck you're talking about. Yeah. And it's not 10 minutes, but.
Right. And I understand. I love these conversations because I don't know if you've noticed, but I watch them very carefully. We started off the conversation by you saying, I just don't want pain. I want to remove pain from the world, and me taking the side that pain is actually good. And we sort of had some agreement that We all need pain. And we ended the conversation with me saying, don't you think it would be great if we could all see ourselves? And you said, well, I don't think it's ever going to be possible for us to see ourselves. We sort of switched positions a little bit, right? Where I said, I'd like the pain to be gone in the way I said it. And you pointed out. So it's, conversation is so helpful for each other, for us, because I think one of the things, one of the reasons why I'm doing this with people is because I think when we entered the room, we were strangers. We didn't know much about each other. Um, we may remain strangers, but as we leave the room, I feel like you're my friend. And I feel like just this time together has given us enough that we share. I've shared so many things that I didn't even want to just take the time to say that we share. That shared commonality makes us no longer strangers. And if the world we live in would have conversations with each other, we would realize that we're not as much strangers as we think we are. And in a world where we're friends, we give each other liberty that we don't give to strangers. Some of my friends have the most cockamamie thoughts you could ever imagine, but I still love them. Strangers who have cockamamie thoughts, I might think twice about loving. Right? And so there's something really beautiful in that. If there was one thing, you said a lot, but if there was one thing you wanted to take 2 minutes and say to the people that are listening to this world today, what would you say?
You need to find your, go inside and find your internal love, like find yourself, lean towards peace. And I say lean towards peace because you can't always have peace. That's just the way I see it. You can't be alone and enjoy your own company. Listen to yourself, but your inner self. Just be in tune. Myself, I can drive from here to San Diego all the way. I can drive all the way to Arizona because I've done it, and not like I could drive 6 hours, 5.5 hours, and not have the radio on. Nothing. Be alone with myself.
Yeah.
And I could be listening to a song, and it drives my husband crazy. Listen to the same CD over and over, and it's like, stop with that. You know, and I've seen people say, well, how can you be in so much quiet? How could you not? You're being alone with yourself. That's to be alone with yourself is the best thing, because how can anyone get to know you or know anything? I mean, you have to learn how to know yourself first.
Totally. How, if people are as intoxicated with you as I am, how would they get in touch with you? Do you even want people getting in touch with you? Or we don't even know what you do or is there some way that they can follow you on social media somewhere or do anything?
I'm on Facebook, and what's my name? I think it's.
Will you do me a favor? Just send me your Facebook link.
Okay.
After we get off of here, and also will you send me a headshot that we can use for the cover of it?
And where would you like me to send it to? Because I don't know where to send it.
I will, on the invitation to this talk, there for the calendar, my address is on there and your address is on there. So if you look at it, but I'll email you the address that you can send it
okay.
to. Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming. And for those of you who listen to these shows, I want to thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, share it with your friends. And the way anything grows is by us telling somebody we like something, not with the thought of selling them on it. Just if we go to a restaurant that you like it, you tell your friends, go to this restaurant. I think you're going to like it. You don't gain anything from it. You just gain the joy of sharing a great place that you eat with somebody else that you can. So if you like shows like this, share them with your friends and see what they say. If you are listening and have been wanting to have a conversation, let me know. Contact me. We're going to have hundreds of conversations now, not just 50s, because I love what's happening in this room and I love what could come from it. Barbara, before we exit stage left, is there anything one last thing you want to say?
No, thank you for having me. You actually shocked me. I was saying that to a cousins. They came down to San Diego, and I was telling them, I'm like, oh, I said I saw it, and because I saw when you, I guess, messaged me, I believe,
Yeah.
through Messenger. I don't know how I saw it, and I looked at it, and I just stared at it for a few seconds, and I'm like, and I started laughing. I'm like, well, okay, we'll see. I don't have anything to lose, so
Fabulous. And how was it for you?
it's good.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Let me encourage you to have conversations with people you don't know. And even more than that, take time to talk to some of the people that you do know as well. Just, and not so much talk to them, but listen to them. Give them the opportunity to tell you what they really think. I had my wife on the show, and it was a beautiful show because sometimes we just don't get a chance to hear the same things, you know? So take time to listen. This world has, in the Mosaic, Mo meets a street artist, and the street artist has tons of broken pieces of glass around him. And he asks Mo what he sees when he sees the broken pieces, and Mo said, "I see broken pieces." And the street artist laughs and says, "Ha, broken pieces tell amazing stories. Let the pieces that are around you in your life tell you the stories they want to tell you. They're amazing stories. I think you'll feel happy that you did." Until the next stranger comes into this room, don't be strangers with each other. Reach out and become friends. Thank you so much. Again, Barbara, thank you. Again, people, thank you. We'll talk soon. Until then, be friends, not strangers. Ciao.
Thank you.